Hi, Dr. Reagan Robertson, CCO of Productive Dentist Academy here, and I have a question for you. Are you finding it hard to get your team aligned to your vision, but you know you deserve growth just like everybody else? That's why we've created the PDA Productivity Workshop. For nearly 20 years, PDA workshops have helped dentists just like you align their teams, get control of scheduling, and create productive practices that they love walking into every day. Just imagine how you will feel when you know your schedule is productive, your systems are humming, and your team is aligned to your vision. It's simple, but it's not necessarily easy. We can help. Visit productivedentist.com/workshop. That's productivedentist.com/workshop to secure your seats now.
Should I hire an MBA for a year and have them do it? Or would it be better if I got an MBA and then I would, in essence, be the MBA for free, giving my own consulting advice because I better understand systems? And she's like, well, since we know what you want to learn, why don't you just figure out which books they teach on that subject and then just learn from that?
Welcome to the Everyday Practices Podcast. I'm Reagan Robertson, and my co-host, Dr. Chad Johnson, and I are on a mission to share the stories of everyday dentists who generate extraordinary results using practical, proven methods you can take right into your own dental practice. If you're ready to elevate patient care and produce results that are anything but ordinary, buckle up and listen in.
Should you hire an MBA into the practice for a year? Is there a different way that you could tackle it? That's the topic of discussion today on this episode of Everyday Practices with your host, Reagan Robertson here, and my talented, dubious,
fantastically looking co-host.
Dashing co-host, Dr. Chad Johnson. Hi, Chad.
With a voice for the radio, not for YouTube. All is going well. We're having a good week. We're wrapping up the girls' soccer and stuff like that. It sounds like you guys are full swing into spring as well.
Yes, it is. It is hot here. It is warm in the Northwest, and all of the doctors and our teammates, since we are virtually a completely remote company with team members all over the United States, they laughed heartily at me complaining that it was 72 degrees up here in the Northwest, because that is
right.
Yeah, that is nothing. So,
right.
Yeah.
But when you're not used to it, it's, so we were going to talk today about, as you said, should you hire an MBA? And Reagan, I was telling you earlier, and for the listener's sake, I was kind of curious, about MBA programs. And for those who go back in the history of Productive Dentist Academy, Chris Moriarty was finishing up his MBA. And
That's right.
I was thinking to myself, maybe I should do that. So how you get envy, you go, that's cool that he's doing that. That's really cool. Maybe I should do it. And what would that look like for Veranda, my dental office, for the brand? As I started to buy a couple practices and expand and stuff like that, would it be advantageous to me to get that? Well, so I was talking with Victoria, and she said, okay, so how many hours are you going to put into it? And then, we were calculating it out, and I was like, she was like, well, what's your, hourly productivity? And, so multiply that out. And, I figured out that it would be about an opportunity cost of about $3 million. And, because I've actually got a job and, do I need an MBA? And she said, what are you trying to learn? And I said, I really want to develop systems in my practice the way that an MBA would look at a business, not just a dental office, but if they had fresh eyes on a dental office and they were to draw a schematic of what the office is doing as far as bringing in money, the output of money, the systems of so your patient is the customer and how do they flow through the office and stuff like that. That's kind of what I want to figure out is how do we perfect that? Should I hire an MBA for a year and have them do it? Or would it be better if I got an MBA and then I would, in essence, be the MBA for free, giving my own consulting advice because I better understand systems? And she's like, well, since we know what you want to learn, why don't you just figure out which books they teach on that subject and then just learn from that. And I was like, uh, that's when I stopped looking into the MBA programs online, because I was kind of heavy into looking at all that stuff. And, for ones that you could do in the evenings, and would you have to collaborate at the same time, or they
That's
have
right.
what's called asynchronous, where you could record stuff at different times, and, how would that work? And that's kind of the backdrop to this. And that was actually when I was getting into Audible more. And I was like, okay, well, why don't I just listen to some of these books, which goes back into our book discussion. So today, knowing that, that MBA program is what opened it up. EOS is the system for entrepreneurial DIYers, do-it-yourselfers. And the book is called Traction by Gino Wickman. And I love it. I don't think it's necessarily the only way to get things done, but it really meant a lot to me when it resonated well with me. And when you've heard about it, you've gone through a similar system. And why don't you tell the listeners about yours? And then what we'll do is compare, contrast, stuff like that.
That's a great summation. There are so many, I would call them alternative MBA style programs and books and systems that you can learn. I went through Traction years ago when we took PDA over to Small Giants. It was me and Victoria, and Small Giants is an organization. I think it started by Bo Burlingame, I want to say, and he wrote the book of that. Anyway, it was a lot of companies that had ESOPs and small to medium sized businesses. And that's where I learned about Traction and read through it. And then I ended up going down the route of Business Made Simple by Donald Miller, who also has the same passion for building an alternative MBA program for business owners, so that they can get the knowledge, but not necessarily the time and investment commitment that it takes. And when you were saying that, Chad, I thought, oh my gosh, you're so talented at what you do, and you and I definitely share. I would call it the curse or the blessing of curiosity and learning. I think if time truly were infinite for us and we could clone ourselves, you and I would learn everything, because it's fascinating.
Have you ever thought about taking a sabbatical, and at the end of a year sabbatical, you wouldn't be done with? Sometimes I just wonder, like if I'm just filling up my queue with stuff, but it would never end,
But there's just so much to learn. That's my retirement plan, right? As soon as both my children graduate, I will be going back to school full time for fun, because there's just so much to learn. And and then you can share what you know. So yes, I think both you and I would definitely be on that track. And then whether or not we're filling it for filling it up's sake, that's like a therapist call. That's something much deeper.
Right.
So we thought it would be fun, listeners, to take you through, since I'm certified as a BMS coach, and Chad, you've been in Traction for 2 years with a coach, right? In your practice?
2 years with the coach. And thanks to Stephanie Mohan, who is in West Des Moines here in Iowa, who plugged me in with the coach. So that way I wasn't doing it by myself. That really accelerated the program. So
fantastic.
Yeah, he's been great. And funny enough, I've also been doing PDA coaching for my office in general on top of the specific EOS coaching. So it's just kind of an adjunct. It's almost like special ops for my team, So I'm double coached right now.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute, because that's really important, I think, to hear, because you'll oftentimes think that there's one coach for one thing, that's it. But when you think about PDA coaches, we've always said that there is no cookie cutter solution. It really is customized for the practice. And our coaches are certified in many different, there's lots of different consulting methods, operating systems.
Sure.
One thing that I thought was interesting that both methodologies recognize, Business Made Simple and Traction, they both say you really should choose one operating system and kind of stick to that for the terminology. For example, Traction has the term rocks, and rocks are priorities, right? They're different priorities that you focus on. If you don't know that, or if you try to blend different operating systems and terms, dentistry is horrible with acronyms. How many acronyms have you heard in your life when it comes to dentistry?
Too many. And then there's even a couple terms for like an acronym can be used in two different ways. And then it's just really annoying because you don't know what's going on. Yeah.
So in this preview session today, what we're going to talk about over the next few weeks is comparing traction with Business Made Simple. And listeners, we had a fantastic interview a few months ago with Mike Michalowicz, the author of Profit First, and his new revised version of Clockwork, which is another system that you can look at as well, which I think fits in between the two of them. So we're going to do a deep dive on these and let you know the benefits, what the pros and cons that we both see. Because when it gets down to it, it's like picking a Porsche with the right trim level. Like, which is right for you, really?
Mm-hmm. And furthermore, there's actually, to complicate matters, there's a third book called The 4 Disciplines of Execution, 4DX. That's by Chris McChesney, Jim Hewling, and Sean Covey. And they do the same thing. And they actually have a really neat subject matter in there about leverage. And so we'll talk about lead measures versus lag measures. And that's been really important to me. That's a specific thing to 4DX, the 4 Disciplines of Execution. So leveraging yourself with lead measures in your team as opposed to lag measures. Lag measures are so easy, and we tend to fall into doing lag measures. So we'll talk about that. But well, you know what? I mean, just real quick, lag measures would be, like, what did we produce last month? Well, how's that going to affect our coming behavior when it's already a thing of the past? It's like, it's neat to know, and it has some bearing to it. But the question would be, can we this week make 50 phone calls so that way we can reactivate patients into the schedule, so that way we're producing stuff? That's something tangible that people can do as a lead measure. That it's like, if we do that, then as a science experiment in our office, we're going to say, if we make those 50 phone calls, do we get the outcome that we want? And then you make the 50 phone calls, and then you keep on doing that week after week, and you find out, okay, did that do it? Or do we need to make it 80 phone calls? And does making 80 phone calls change versus doing 50 phone calls? And then, or do phone calls matter at all? And how much does that matter to the bottom line, to what we are collecting? Because that's something that the team can know that tomorrow they can have an effect into it. That's a lead measure. That is 4 Disciplines of Execution. It's really not talked about in that style elsewhere, but you've heard it before: lag measures, lead measures, right? Mm-hmm. But that's who it comes from.
Yes, whenever I hear a lag, I just think of looking at the stars. And when you're looking at the stars, you're looking at the past, because it can't reach us quite quick enough. And I don't know if your practice does budget versus actual. That was something that PDA has done for forever, and it really does help visualize what are those activities. One of my favorite sales mentors, he was president for a huge multi-million-dollar company, global company. And he used to say it comes down to activities, understanding the activities and the percentage of close rate, really, and then really focusing on that. So focusing on the behaviors of it, if I hear you right. That's how you get into looking at your lead measures, which BMS covers really well. And I bet Traction probably does as well. They probably do with their with how they set up their meeting structure and whatnot. So as you guys can see, this is going to be some spicy fun. I am so excited to dive into this, because we both put these measures into play in our own businesses. We've seen doctors do it, and this is going to be a hoot.
Yep. So if you have any questions that you would like to lead us into, right. When we post about this on Facebook, feel free to find us on Facebook on Productive Dentists, Productive Dentists.
.com.
Facebook. Well, but whatever, the Facebook page, Productive Dentist. Is that, what is it?
Facebook.com.
Yeah.
/ Productive Dentist Academy.
Productive Dentist Academy.
Yes.
And so you could ask your questions or give any thoughts and stuff like that, and we'll shout those out if we get any, regarding, have you given 4DX a try? Have you given BMS a try? Have you given EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system, which is the book Traction? Have you given any of those a try? Have you been frustrated with them? Have you found success with them? We'd even love to have you on the show if you want to talk about it. So that could be a follow-up as well. And it could even be a year from now. Like if you're listening to this in 2025 and you go, crud, I wish I could have, talked about that. Come on, let's do it. But we're, in the grand scheme of things right now, we're going through a bunch of books. And specifically, we're tying some books together so that way we can talk about the principles within those books that really matter in dentistry. I feel like our office has become more self-sustainable in taking care of our own problems by implementing EOS. And of course, I love Donald Miller. So, I mean, like his stuff as far as marketing and branding is amazing, but then he took it another step further with Business Made Simple altogether with how he has business owners handle their businesses, because he's done it by trial by fire himself.
Yes, he's definitely very transparent about the. I think Gino's also good at that. I think Mike Michalowicz is also good at that. I'll learn about the 40X. I don't know about that, so I can't speak to them, but I think they all do a really good job at being vulnerable, at communicating how they've overcome their challenges and sharing the systems that have helped them. That's definitely how I see it.
Yep. Well, so this is kind of a short episode for us to kind of introduce the topics that are coming up and why. So if it seems short and there's not a lot of action packed, but take this for the message of the day: lead measures versus lag measures. And, have you thought through when you're making SMART goals, even, stuff like that? The idea is to just to take a goal and make it SMART. But then, for lead or for, what statistics are you measuring and whatnot, following the lead measures and having your team act on those versus the lag measures.
Well, thank you very much, Chad, and listeners. To bring you back around to the beginning, this discussion is really, our goal with it is to give you the alternative measures to hiring an MBA in your practice, because many of you, might not have the resources to make that a reality right now. Or you're not the size where it's just completely inappropriate as well. So instead of if you're thinking about getting your MBA, these are some things that we think you should consider first. Yep.
And you know what? Actually, Elon Musk recently talked about that. They asked one guy interviewed, it's on YouTube. I found it as a short. And he got asked, do you think that people should get their PhD? And he said, well, it depends what the utility is on it. So if it has a big effect on a few people, then it's valuable. And if it has a small effect on a lot of people, then that's still valuable. So you need to figure out, like what the effect is going to be, like how many people you're going to affect. And will it be a big change within a small industry, or a small change within a lot of people? For example, fluoridating water, someone that, came up with that. That might just be like, well, I mean, he made a small difference. That's neat that he did that. But, but it's like, no, that's a huge difference to a lot of people. That's it's a small, huge difference to mankind. And so that was worth it. The PhD question that Elon Musk answered could go to our question. Do you have to get an MBA? And the answer is probably no, but what do you want to learn? And I think that was fantastic advice from Victoria. So props to her.
Fantastic. Well, we look forward to the next few weeks and hope you have a great week along the way.
That's right. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Everyday Practices Podcast. Chad and I are here every week thanks to our community of listeners just like you, and we'd love your help. It would mean the world if you can help spread the word by sharing this episode with a fellow dentist and leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify. Do you have an extraordinary story you'd like to share, or feedback on how we can make this podcast even more awesome? Drop us an email at podcast@productivedentist.com. And don't forget to check out our other podcasts from Productive Dentist Academy at productivedentist.com/podcasts. See you next week.